You know what's awesome? I began creating content back in 2018 and my music taste has certainly evolved since then. Prior to embarking on my YouTube journey, I was more inclined towards what you might call normie bands, like Korn, Slipknot, Papa Roach and Five Finger Death Punch. If you check out my top 10 bands list from 2018, you'll notice that I wouldn't include any of them if I were to redo that video now. Well, apart from Dream Theater, I'm not hesitant to share my metal journey. I've documented all my metal explorations of new metal music on 2 fucking channels. You can witness this evolution on both of my channels as my music taste has undergone a massive transformation, significant changes. I'd choose a fucking Dark Throne album over a fucking Slipknot album any day of the week now. Recently, as I delved into the archives, I revisited the moments I discovered heavier music as I provided brief reviews such as on Discovery. During the earlier years of Discovery, I used to give you short album reviews of older albums along with the new releases. Interestingly enough, I used to rate classic albums that you probably would fucking love quite low because I just didn't get it back then. This video is all about revisiting my initial thoughts on albums I now appreciate. Taking a nostalgic trip back in time, it's going to be a fun experience. Dimmu Borgir never fascinated me when I first discovered black metal. I was shocked when I saw my old review on their debut album For or Tid, a symphonic black metal classic. Well, take a look at my initial thoughts. Dimmu Borgir and their album For the Tid. Okay, so I got some problems with this album. I didn't really enjoy this album, to be honest. I didn't enjoy it. The vocals were a bit strange in my opinion. It was the overall instrumentals as well. And I'm gonna be brutally honest, I kind of wanted this album to end. Like, I listened to it a few times and I didn't gravitate towards it. Weird black metal, it was really weird. Like, they had the sort of symphonic feels, really airy moments, but you just had straight, hard, heavy instrumentals with drums, guitars, without the symphonic elements. I feel this album would have been a lot better. The vocals, on the other hand, were okay. But I did check out another Dimmu Borgir album this month as well. But in my opinion, For the Tid will probably get a 3 out of 10 for me. So yeah, I'll give this a 3. Jesus Christ, it still hurts me now watching myself and rating this album a 30%. I mean, what the fuck was I thinking? I'm still not a big fan of Dimmu Borgir, but upon revisiting this album, I have to say it's a fucking banger. It could honestly be my favorite now. I love the vocals and sweeping guitar work, and the album is just brimming with atmosphere. It's actually painful to see myself criticize this album, and I understand why many people were surprised back then. As I mentioned, I've always been honest with my opinions and didn't shy away from expressing my dislike for an album. When I first delved into black metal, I wasn't particularly drawn to symphonic metal. I preferred atmospheric black metal, and I didn't think For or Tid could measure up. However, upon re-listening to it, I find this album fantastic. I adore the eerie synth work and mid-paced songs. The vocals featuring gratifying blackened shrieks that are a pleasure to listen to. The self-titled track For or Tid could be my favorite from the album, along with the instrumental Glitter Tind with that intense shriek in the middle. Den Gier des Sunhits Heska. I can't really pronounce it. It has the best outro with those subtle synths and that lead fucking guitar filled with fucking emotion. I have no idea why I rated it a 3 out of 10 back then. I'm pleased to say I generally enjoy this album now, and I'm giving it an 80%. It may not be the best black metal album I've heard, but it exudes a lot of atmosphere, and the production has a raw and organic quality. Oh my god. And to think I used to call Dimmu Borgir Dimmu Borgir. You all know I love Incantation. I was so fucking surprised when I saw my first initial thoughts on the classic death metal album Onward to Golgotha, which was released in 1992, and it was their debut album. Take a look at this piece of shit. Now, Incantation is a brutal death metal band, I gotta say. It's quite brutal death metal. Golf is a good song. Blasphemous Cremation's a good song as well. Deliverance of Horrific Prophecies, that's an amazing song. Now, his vocals are very deep and demonic, and at times I didn't really enjoy it, I gotta be brutally honest. Onward to Golgotha is an okay album, in my opinion. But this album, probably give this a solid 5 out of 10. If you don't like brutal death metal, I wouldn't recommend this album for you. One album. Okay, so I gave it a fucking 50%, but that's just unacceptable. Listen, you four-eye fuck. This is an incredible album from start to finish, and to think I called this brutal death metal is fucking laughable, although it is brutal. Onward to Golgotha is now one of my favorite death metal albums. I love the guitar work in killer tracks like Golgotha, Devoured Death, and Blasphemous. The album exudes a grimy atmosphere with dirty sounding fucking production, incorporating elements of doom and crushing guitar riffs that will just crush your shoulders. It's an incredible debut album. Forget the 5 out of 10 rating. I'm now giving this a 90%. I suppose when I initially listened to this album, I wasn't quite prepared for death metal. My journey into death metal came much later as I first delved deeper into black metal and doom metal, particularly funeral doom. It took me some time to explore death metal, but Onward to Golgotha remains a fantastic fucking album. Okay, this pains me to watch this, but Carach Angren isn't safe. I know they are a Vegemite band. Some people love them and some people despise them. But the way I smashed their album Frankensteiner Strata is unacceptable. Take a look at this. And now we go to one of the albums that I weren't very impressed with. We're talking about Carach Angren, Frankensteiner Stratamontanus. This album is a mess. It's an absolute mess. And to be honest, I had to stomach listening to this album twice to try and give some positive review on this album, but honestly, I cannot. I cannot give you a positive review on this album. I don't understand the hype for this band, to be honest. Carach Angren albums, the last album was good, but this album, man, this album is a fucking mess. It really is. It's got a good concept to the album, but it's the execution. I don't really enjoy this album. I think it's one of the worst albums of the year at the moment, really rivaling with Old Man Gloom as well. Didn't like that album as well. Scourged Ghoul Undead is probably the best song off the album. The rest of the songs are just, meh. I must warn you that you may not like it, but they incorporate some cheesy symphonic elements throughout this album. It's not a very good album. The Oceans do it so much better than this piece of shit. And for Carach Angren and the new album, man, a 1.5 out of 10. So coming in at number 7 is the second black metal album on this list, and it's a very popular black metal band. It's Carach Angren, Frankensteiner Stratamontanus. A very cheesy, cinematic, theatrical black metal album that I fucking hated. I really did. Now, I gave this a fucking 1 out of 10, just because of how terrible this album is. It incorporates symphonic elements. The concept of the album is okay. It's all about Frankenstein's monster, but it's the execution by Carach Angren that just really downgrades this album, and not to mention sonically, it sounds awful. I can't believe people think that this album is the best black metal album of 2020, so fuck off right now. Stick a breadstick up your ass, because this album is the worst black metal album of 2020, not the best black metal album of 2020. People say this is the best black metal album of the year, and I highly disagree. I think this album is just a pile of shit. There are much better symphonic fucking black metal albums this year, and you know what? I hated this album. It easily fits into the worst albums of the year. It was like a dog that took a dump on the grass. Someone was following the dog, and this person stood on this pile of shit and walked it all the way through the house. This is what this album is like. This album's a trail of shit. Carach Angren, Frankensteiner Stratamontanus isn't a good album. The vocals aren't very good, but this album is really bad. It's a really bad album, and I don't really enjoy it. So yeah, Carach Angren, Frankensteiner Stratamontanus can get in a fucking bin. As you all know now, I love Carach Angren. However, back then I wasn't a fan of theatrical black metal, so I didn't hesitate to give Carach Angren's album a 1.5 out of 10, which translates to 15%. Truthfully, I now absolutely love this album. While it may still be their weakest work, it's still very good. This black metal album is quite peculiar, theatrical, and strange. You have tracks like The Necromancer, Frankensteiner, Straton Montanus, and even Monster, which is a slow plodding song. This album certainly didn't deserve a 15% rating. It's one of the lowest scores I've ever given, so I'm here to make amends. I'm now giving this album a 75%. Not even the legendary band Celtic Frost was safe during my rampage on classic releases. I absolutely smashed Celtic Frost's EP Morbid Tales, which was released in 1984. Take a look at this. So then we go to Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales. Demo EP album, you could say, before their first album. This album was boring. It was a pretty boring album. Nothing really grabbed me at all. It was just plain stone cold boring. It's a thrashy album, and this was before they were black metal, so we're the first wave of black metal here, and it was just thrash. It sounded like Slayer, and I love Slayer, but it's a pretty shitty Slayer version, to be honest. And Celtic Frost, I believe, were a lot better throughout the next few albums, but for Morbid Tales, a 3.5 out of 10, a very boring album to listen to. What? A 3 out of 10? That's just 30% on the new scale. I had the audacity to call them a shitty version of Slayer. What was I thinking? Revisiting Morbid Tales, which I've done countless times over the years, has completely changed my opinion. Back then I didn't appreciate Celtic Frost, but given this classic EP a 3 out of 10 was simply fucking unacceptable. The guitar work is outstanding. Those groovy riffs on songs like Into the Crypts of Ray and Visions of Morality are top notch. Dethroned Emperor, a killer fucking song with those screams and those meaty riffs that definitely Shining were inspired by. The doomy-laden riffs on Procreation of the Wicked. This was prototype black death metal. They were pioneers of the genre, and yet in that review, I slammed them. So I'm updating this score, and I'm sure the old me will be sharpening his knife in disapproval. I'm giving this a solid 75%. While to Megatherion and Into the Pantheon may be better in my eyes, 80% certainly beats 30%. I'm giving it 80% now. Oh, the old me would have had a field day with this change of heart. The disrespect I had with this classic band really hurts me now, but it's fun to look back at all the mistakes I made in my metal journey. I only started to really get into Celtic Frost about 3 years ago. I even ranked them on my channel. But to be truthful, I didn't like the band. I didn't understand why they were called black metal, but now I do. The black and death metal band Belphegor isn't safe either. When I slammed their debut, The Last Supper, take a look. The next band I checked out was Belphegor and their album The Last Supper. Oh, we have some very serious problems with this album. We do. I didn't enjoy it. Did not enjoy it. My mate didn't enjoy it at all. He hated it. I hated it. The Last Supper was the most decent song out of the album. A Funeral Without a Cry was good. Impalement Without Mercy was alright. March of the Dead, The Rapture of Coronation, Engulfed in Eternal Forest were all crap in my opinion. Drowned in Excrements they were okay. This album, it sounds the same. It does. It sounds the same. It's the same old riffs, the same old vocals. And to me, it is not a very good album. So for this album, I'm probably giving this a solid 2 out of 10. Belphegor was a band that me and my mate wanted to find out more. And we checked out the next album, which was Lucifer Something. We couldn't even get past the first song. I don't know, there was something wrong with the production, but we did not enjoy this album at all. Okay, so I really can't fathom how I could have rated this so incredibly low at only fucking 20%. What was I thinking back then? Definitely not the black and death metal drug, that's for sure. Listening to it today, I believe this is one of the best black and death metal albums of all time. The fast and furious black and screams on The Last Supper, the hard hitting A Funeral Without a Cry, and the pummeling drums on Impalement with Mercy. So many phenomenal songs on this record. The infectious melodies, particularly guitar lead on Impalement Without Mercy, are outstanding. This album is packed with bangers, yet I gave it a mere 20% or 2 out of 10 on the old scale. This is just uncalled for. I feel like going back in time, hopping in my DeLorean if I had one, hunting myself down and brutally mutilating my past self, watching the blood drain from old Jamie's vessel. I'm generally shocked by the low score. I gave this album, I recall it took me quite a while to appreciate Belphegor. One thing I admire about myself is that I always give bands 3 chances, but a third listen, if I still don't like them, I give up. Fortunately, the third time was the charm for Belphegor, and I now love all their albums. The Last Supper is a fantastic album from start to finish. To correct this mistake, I'm giving this album a well-deserved 85%. So here's the thing, everyone knows that's been following me for years now that I didn't like Napalm Death's debut album Scum. I slammed it multiple fucking times. I'm talking about at least 15 times. Literally dedicated a whole episode of Discovery saying Scum is one of the worst albums I've heard. Just take a look at this. And now we go to one of the worst albums I've heard of all time, and this is definitely a lot of people's masterpiece. And to be honest, I don't know how you see Scum by Napalm Death is a masterpiece, because this is an absolute shocker of an album. I understand how they innovated grindcore, but I can't really get into that punky, thrashy grindcore that Napalm Death create in such an album called Scum. This album is, in my opinion, not very good. Surely there are some groovy riffs now and again, but you know what? It was achingly exhausting to go through all 20-something songs for 33 minutes. I just wanted to kill myself. Napalm Death Scum, I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. I don't even want to talk about this album. So that was about 5 years ago, and boy has my opinion changed on Scum. A shout out to Nails and their new album Every Bridge Burning for prompting me to revisit Scum. This is recent. I revisited the Scum and actually enjoyed it. I actually fucking enjoyed it. In my initial review, I gave it a low 30%. What I appreciate about this album now are the riffs and the production. The production is fucking fantastic. It sounds organic and heavy. Just last week I thought I would always despise Scum, but upon revisiting it, I finally understand where fans are coming from. This is a brilliant album. The fusion of punk and thrash, frenetic drumming, and infectious fucking guitar riffs make it a standout. Years ago, I ranked Napalm Death's albums and placed Scum dead last, although I still prefer albums like Harmony Corruption and Utopia Banish. When they were more death metal than grindcore, I now feel that Scum didn't deserve the hate I gave it. 33 minutes of insane music, brilliant hidden solos, and groovy riffs make it a standout. The new score for Scum is 70%. I generally appreciate this album now. If I were to redo my ranking, I would actually rank Scum much higher, but for some reason I always want to turn it off midway through, because it's like listening to 2 different albums. First half is more groovy, second half is more chaotic. But yeah, from 30% to 75% is a pretty good score. Okay, and Lucky Last is an album I really enjoy now, but the old me didn't, the fucker. Back in 2019, when Crypt Sermon released their album The Ruins of Fading Light, I slammed it. Take a look. Okay, so the next album I checked out was Crypt Sermon and the album Ruins of Fading Light. I heard a lot of people rave about this album, so I checked this out, and I gotta say, it's not my cup of tea, this album. Like, it's doom metal and everything, but I just can't get over those vocals. I just don't like the vocals, and that, I gotta be brutally honest, I just can't get used to the vocals, unfortunately. Maybe one day I will enjoy this album, but at the moment, The Ruins of Fading Light is not my cup of tea. And I love doom metal, but I don't like this sort of doom metal. I actually don't understand why I didn't like this. It's a fantastic album from start to finish. It's like Candlemass, epic doom metal, and I adore it now. I originally gave this album 30% or 3 out of 10, and I can't comprehend why. Revisiting my old album reviews was quite amusing, because there are so many opinions I now disagree with, especially the scores on some albums. Considering this album, The Ruins of Fading Light, is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever fucking made. The riffs on this album are crushingly heavy. The vocals are fantastic, incorporating harsher vocals throughout songs like The Ninth Templar, and the guitar solos are mouth-watering. I just can't understand why I didn't like it initially. I remember my fans even criticized me for it. I was quite brutal with the score, although I still believe there are minor flaws on this record, and I think Stygian Rose is a much tighter and cohesive album. The Ruins of Fading Light didn't deserve a 30%, so I'm revisiting this album to an 80%. Great songs like Keys of Solomon and an awesome solo in Our Reverend's Grave. The Snake Handler contribute to the epic nature of the album. I fucking love it now. Whereas about 6 years ago, I didn't want to listen to it ever again. So yeah, there you are. Let me know if you want to see more of these videos. There's plenty of doozies we can go back to. It's really nice. It's really insane how I rated albums so low. Now I thoroughly enjoy them. It just shows you that your music tastes, your taste buds change throughout the years when you listen to the beautiful thing called metal. So let me know if you want to see me exploring new albums and putting in a video monthly. There's just so much metal I haven't heard. This includes lots of black metal and death metal. Let me know what you thought of this video. It's been fun, and I'll see you in the next one.